guys, welcome back to my channel where we discuss all things intuitive eating, body acceptance, and RD to be. My name is Gina Grace, I'm a registered dietitian, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about how I passed the examination for registered dietitians in 2020. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I have never been a super great test taker. I did not ever do super well on my tests in undergrad, and my internship experience actually ended up being majority online because of COVID. So I also didn't get a lot of in-person experience in terms of my internship, but I was still able to pass the exam. So if I can do it, you can do it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So first thing I'm going to start with is the physical tools that I used to study with this exam. And the first thing I used to study was the Gene Inman binder. If you've watched any videos so far about taking the RD exam, you've probably already seen the Gene Inman binder. It is definitely not cheap. It's over $300. It's in between $300 and $400. I can't remember exactly how much it is, but it was required by my internship and I had to buy it brand new. Well, I already had to buy this, but I definitely don't regret buying it. I did not purchase the CDs that it comes with, which is an audio recording of Gene Inman going through the book, and she points out specific things to look for on the exam. However, we did do a review session with Gene Inman during my internship, so I did have that experience with it. I definitely recommend, if your internship does not do a session with Gene Inman, to purchase or find the recordings elsewhere, because they definitely were a really big help for me to go through and listen to what she told me to highlight and know exactly what to look for on the exam in terms of what's in this book. It's super comprehensive, and if you're not going to buy this book, I recommend getting something similar, some type of like really comprehensive review for the exam. And the way I studied this book was I did 1 week of domain 1, just read through it, highlighted it, studied it, and then I took half a week to go back through and review the things I was a little unsure about. And then I did the same thing with domain 2, and then domain 3 and 4 I did the same thing, but I combined them because those domains are only about half the length in pages that domain 1 and 2 are. And then with this binder, I also ended up making some study sheets through them. I did study sheets on vitamins and minerals, MNT, and just all the topics that I was a little either unsure on or knew would be a huge component of the exam, and I made review sheets. That way when I was studying, I didn't have to go through that entire section, but I had a condensed version on the sheets. And then I also did do flashcards. The only thing I did flashcards on were the medications and the lab values. I did both the normal medications and then the diabetes medications as well as the insulins. The reason I didn't do more flashcards is simply because I didn't want to be memorizing the material. I really wanted to understand it. And that was something that was always advised to me when studying for the exam. So I only made flashcards on those things, and I do recommend making flashcards on those things, the lab values and all the medications, just because you can't really understand those. You pretty much just have to memorize them. The next tool I used was Osmosis. And if you've been on YouTube at all, you may have seen some of their videos already, but they also have their own website, and you can get a free week trial with Osmosis. And they have tons of different videos on MNT, disease states, and disease pathways and digestion pathways. I did not end up purchasing a membership with them. The week trial was plenty enough time for me, but I definitely recommend, if you're a little bit confused on any of those more larger concepts, that you check them out. And then as well as just YouTube videos. There was one YouTube account that I really liked for studying the EN and PN, and they are called Dietitians and Nutrition Support on YouTube. They have really helpful videos on calculating enteral and parenteral nutritions that's really going to be useful for your exam. And I did have questions on both an enteral and parenteral nutrition, so I highly recommend making sure you understand those concepts as well. The next tool I used, I've actually never seen anyone else recommend it, probably because it's still kind of new, but I listened to a podcast called Chomping Down the RD Exam. I'll link it below. It was a free podcast on Spotify with a Spotify membership. It was a really great way for me to study while not studying. So if I was just going on a walk or if I was driving somewhere, I would listen to that podcast, and it covers a bunch of different kinds of topics that are on the RD exam. And I also love podcasts, so it was a fun way for me to learn some of the information. And also, if you follow him on Instagram, it's an RD that runs it, he takes suggestions for future podcast topics. So that's definitely something I recommend if you enjoy podcasts. I did download Pocket Prep, and if you're looking for Pocket Prep in the App Store, you're going to have to look for the medical Pocket Prep, and then you select the exam that you're taking. You can obviously just select the RD exam. It was only $15 for a month subscription. After I purchased Gene Inman, I really was trying to look for a lot of free or very cheap resources because I had no money by the time my internship was over after not working for months. So this was a great, really, really affordable resource. It's basically just a bunch of questions, practice tests, and I think there's over like 600 questions on Pocket Prep. And I really liked it because you could customize based off the domain. So after I finished reviewing domain 1, I was able to go through on Pocket Prep and only do questions on domain 1. My next tip is to join Facebook groups. And I ended up joining 3 Facebook groups, and I wish I had only joined 1. I will link the 3 that I joined below. I definitely recommend maybe the last week of your internship joining a few different ones, and then by the time you're ready to start studying, just leave the ones that you're not super into and only stick in 1 or 2, just because it did get a little bit overwhelming, because in all these Facebook groups they are trying to sell you tutoring sessions. That's basically the services that they're providing. And so for me, it just got a little bit overwhelming having so many options for tutoring. I did end up purchasing 1 tutoring session, which I will get to in a little bit, but having all the options was a little overwhelming. So I definitely recommend Facebook groups, but only try to join 1 or 2. Definitely utilize any documents that they have on there. So go to their pictures and their documents they have uploaded. I got some really, really helpful graphics off of different Facebook groups I was in. And also, if I was ever stuck on a topic, if I couldn't find anything on YouTube, I'd go to the Facebook group and type in the search bar for that specific Facebook group and see if anybody else has ever asked questions on those topics, and I was able to find a lot of really helpful information that way as well. Also, when I was studying Gene Inman, I used this little whiteboard. I would use this to write out pathways. I would write out different vitamins or medications, and I would just start writing down everything I knew. Writing things out always really helps me study, and this was great because I wasn't wasting a bunch of paper. So I highly recommend checking that out and getting yourself a little whiteboard if you think that might be helpful for you as well. Also, All Access Dietetics, I bought their course when I was applying for my dietetic internship, and I really liked it. They also have a book that I'm pretty sure just contains a bunch of worksheets on different topics on the RD exam, and it's just supposed to be another way to help you study. I couldn't afford to buy the book. However, they did have free downloads. If you go to their website, they send you like 5 free worksheets, so I did those. They had ones on vitamins and minerals, lab values, digestion and absorption. I filled all those out, and I thought they were a really great, helpful way, another way to write things out and study for the exam. Moving on for tips for preparation. My number 1 tip is to have a set studying schedule. I was fortunate that I was not working while I was studying. I started studying about the last 2 weeks of my internship. I studied for maybe a couple hours a day here and there, but I started studying full time after my internship, 6 days a week for 5 hours a day. I would start studying at 10 a.m. and I would study for an hour on, and then I would take a 20-minute break, and then after 3 hours of studying, I took an hour lunch break. So I would end up studying from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and I also wrote out my schedule and stuck it on the wall where I was studying at. Having a set studying schedule was a huge help for me. I honestly don't think I would have taken it as seriously if I was just kind of leaving it up to chance. And then I also took Sundays off. I definitely recommend taking a day off if you're able to, if you're also not working while studying. My next tip for preparing for the exam is to make sure you're taking time to relax and de-stress throughout the process. Don't wait until the week of to be like, oh, I'm gonna try to take my mind off of this and relax a little bit. It's gonna be a really, really stressful process studying. It is extremely overwhelming looking at, especially the Gene Inman book, and seeing how much information you need to know. Go on a walk, go on a run, whatever you like to do to relax. So I definitely recommend trying to incorporate that. My next step is to set up your space. I'll insert a clip here of what my space looked like. My desk was always really cluttered. However, the window I sat in front of had a lot of sticky notes on it. I had a little mantra on there that I will show you. Also, I had previously taken the DTR exam and passed, so I took my paper that I got from that and hung that up on the window as well. And anytime I would get discouraged, I would look at that and remind myself that I'd already accomplished that, so I knew I could accomplish this as well. My next tip, and this was something that was recommended to us by Gene Inman during our review session in my internship: don't let anyone know the day that you're taking the exam. I didn't let my parents know, my friends know, anyone in my family. The only person that knew was my boyfriend, and that's only because I lived with him. I also got off of social media for about the 3 or 4 weeks leading up to my exam. I get really distracted by social media, so this was just a personal thing, but I deleted all the apps from my phone except for Facebook because I was using those Facebook groups. But I just didn't get on social media, and it really helped me to stay focused and not get distracted with anything else going on. When you are doing practice exams, this is another really big thing that I wish I had realized while studying, is to not let the scores of those practice exams freak you out too much. I would get around 70s on the Inman questions and maybe higher 70s to low 80s on pocket prep questions. However, 2 days before my exam, I did 100 Inman questions I had set up for myself, and I got a 68, and it freaked me out so much. But try to remember that you can study as much as you want, but you have no clue what the exam is going to ask you about and what questions they're going to omit. I only had 2 food service calculation questions, and I feel like I had like no MMT questions. I had like a few, but maybe 5. That's what it felt like, and I had so many situational questions that honestly, I feel like a lot of the exams I took for practice did not really reflect what my actual exam looked like. So just keep that in mind. Do a lot of practice tests because it is really helpful to get in that mindset of taking the exam, but don't let the scores freak you out too much. And then my last piece of advice in terms of preparing for the exam is to take every piece of advice, including this entire video, with a grain of salt, because you know what works best for you, and it can be really easy to hear all the advice that people are giving you who have taken the exam before and get super overwhelmed because you're trying it and it's not working for you. You don't have to do all the advice that people tell you. Try it out, and if it doesn't work, move on to something else until you find what works for you. And then I just wanted to give some really general tips for the day of the exam and actually taking the exam. I found it really helpful to plan as much as I could. I called the testing center and asked about the temperature in the room so I could plan out an outfit to wear. I had planned a breakfast that I wanted to have beforehand. I planned what I wanted to do the morning of. So just having like a little bit of sense of control for the day of was also really helpful. On the way there, I listened to my running playlist that I use when I run. So it had a lot of upbeat music on it, and that also helped me wake me up for one thing, because like I said, I did take my test at 8 a.m., but also just put me in a good mood and get me pumped and excited to take my exam. And then lastly is to just give it your all. You definitely don't want to walk away from the testing center feeling like the reason if you failed that you did fail was because you didn't try hard enough the day of, or you didn't focus enough, or you rushed through. You don't want to make any silly mistakes like that. So just try your best, give it your all, and tell yourself that you're capable of passing this exam. If you're taking this exam soon or getting ready to start studying, I definitely wish you luck. Feel free to reach out to me on my social media if you have any questions. Let me know down below in the comments if you are starting to study, where you're at in the studying process. And again, feel free to ask me any questions. Follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is Freely.Nourished, and I will also link that down below. Subscribe if you like this video, and I will see you in my next one.